Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to England once again, and we're going to revisit a brewery that you've seen me review a good number of things from, but it's not all that often that I actually get to do a dedicated review to these guys, because a lot of the beers I encounter involving them are collaborations and such, so really looking forward to seeing how this one turns out. This is a beer that's meant to be really quite good. So for this review we are going to head to Derbyshire and we're having a taste of another beer from the Buxton Brewery. So this one is the single barrel version of the Rain Shadow. It's an Imperial Stout coming in at 12% ABV and it's aged in bourbon barrels. The original Rain Shadow is a 10% Imperial Stout, and that's supposed to be really quite good actually. I saw that a few months back on glassbanking.sa, but I didn't buy it, and I can't remember what the reason for it was, but it was probably that I just picked something else that was a little bit more kind of unusual or something like that, because I have seen the Buxton beers around quite regularly. But this one came through the small partiers and Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 6th of September 2019, I want to say. Either that or it would have been the 20th, but it's supposed to be a very good beer, this one, and I'm really looking forward to trying it. So hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. This is a brewery that's very highly regarded in England, and I would definitely say these guys are one of the top breweries in England these days. And the other good thing about them is that they do try a lot of different styles and things like that. You can get barley wines, you can get Imperial Stouts, the occasional Scotch ale and things like that as well, and they're also starting to put out a good few more IPAs and things like that recently as well. So one of the English breweries that you really do want to check out, in my opinion. But yeah, let's get on and actually get on with the review then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done involving Buxton Brewery. No doubt there will be more added to that in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Buxton Brewery then. So Buxton Brewery, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in a little town called Buxton, which is a spa town in Derbyshire in England. And this brewery began with the first ever brew by Quinn back in January of 2009. Now Jeff had studied physics before this, and he had a background in engineering before he got into home brewing a little bit. And for a period of time the brewery cuckoo brewed, or gypsy brewed basically, at another local microbrewery before getting their own facility up and running, and they began brewing there in January of 2010, and in the beginning they were only producing very small batches of 800 litres. But today the brewery can be found on Staden Lane in Buxton. They've got a 7,000 square foot space, and at full capacity they can produce around 60,000 litres of beer per month, and their beers are now exported worldwide. I've seen them in Japan, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure you can get them in Australia and New Zealand, and I'm guessing you'll be able to get them throughout the Americas as well. I think it's about 20 or 30 different countries they export to. But the Buxton beers have won a lot of different accolades, and the brewery's been consistently ranked in the world top 100 breweries by Rate Beer and things like this too. The local area that this brewery's from is known as the Peak District, and it's famed for its water, which has been revered since Roman times. The Romans actually named the town Aqua Arnimatea, which translates into English as the waters of the goddess of spring. Many of their early beers were actually named after local geographical and geological features around the Buxton area. The tower that you would have found on the old labels was called the Grinlow Tower, and this was a folly tower that was built simply for decoration. In more recent times they seem to have been developing a lot of developing a barrel aging program and playing around with Imperial Stouts a lot. They've got Scotch barrel aged Imperial Stouts, they've got bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stouts, they've got a few barley wines and things like that there as well, and you'll find the occasional Scotch ale from this brewery too. But there's a good number of IPAs and things like that coming out from them now. When I checked the website before filming this video, they had Citra IPAs and Mosaic IPAs and all these kind of things, a lot of single hop IPAs, and one of the ones that I really do hope that I can try at some point soon is the Kingslayer IPA. I've heard that that's a very nice beer, and there's also one that I think is Axe to the Power X, this is supposed to be really good as well. That's another one that I need to try and get a hold of at some point soon. But since 2013, at this brewery have also had their tap house, which is in the old courthouse on George Street in Buxton. That's meant to be really good as well. Hopefully I can get down there and visit that at some point. And as of September 2019, they've produced around 150 different types of beer according to Untappd. So a fairly prolific brewery, this one. They do some very, very good quality beers. I would say that this brewery is more kind of along the lines of that they're very meticulous when it comes to their recipes and things like that. So they work a lot to actually get a very, very good beer out there. So definitely one of the English breweries that you want to check out. And compared to some of the other ones that are, you know, really revered at the moment, these guys have got a lot of variety when it comes to their styles. So definitely check these guys out. But that's all you really need to know about the Buxton Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like this, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. If you're interested in all the different beers that they have, their website is actually pretty good for that compared to some of the other ones, but you can check out the Untappd and Rate Beer pages too. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. We can get rid of the brewery notes. So this one, as I said to you, is a 12% Imperial Stout. I'm sure I read on Untappd that this one was actually 12.2%, so not kind of sure about that. But there you can see nice artwork on this one. I mean, this one's obviously been I think it's been named because of Jeff's physics background and stuff like that. I actually quite liked the name of this one. It's a bit heavy metal, Rain Shadow. Of course, I studied astrophysics as well and chemistry before that. Plain bottle cap on this one, and it says here that this one was bottled on the 24th of June 2019. So it's been in the the bottle for about 3 months when we're trying it, so you know that should be a decent amount of time. Sometimes you want to leave them for about 6 months, but to be honest, I was just quite excited to review this one when I got a hold of it, so let's just go for it. So yeah, like I said, 12% Imperial Stout, this one, aged in bourbon barrels, the big brother of the original Rain Shadow. You get some lovely fruity notes out of this as you open it up actually, but the big brother of the original Rain Shadow, which comes in at 10% ABV. Hopefully I can review that one for you at some point on the channel as well. But there we are, and as you can see, and as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this one is poured a lovely ebony kind of rosewood colour. So if I hold it up to the light then, there's a little bit of light comes through it, but this one is pretty much pitch black, to be honest with you. You can see there's a nice quarter finger of a frothy, quite dark tan head of this beer. It looks absolutely lovely. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there, but you know, overall it looks pretty nice, I have to say. You know, it looks pretty much as you would expect from an Imperial Stout. So yeah, that looks really nice. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. That's one of the darkest heads I think you'll come across from an Imperial Stout, but yeah, that smells absolutely lovely. Where to start with this one? One of the things that I'll say before we actually have a taste of this beer is that whenever you barrel age these beers, I always find it takes the mouthfeel down a little bit. It makes it feel just a little bit thinner, but then of course you get this really infused flavour out of it. One of the things when it's always bourbon barrels instead of like Scotch whisky barrels too, it's more along the lines of you know, it really is more along the lines of being like a little bit of a sweet, brown, sugary kind of thing. The Scotch whiskies, you've got a bit more kind of variety there in my experience. I might be talking rubbish about American whisky. I don't encounter it too much, obviously, because I'm here in Europe. But the Scotch whisky, you've got the peaty ones, you've got the sweet ones, and you've also got the more citrusy ones as well. So there's a good variety there. And of course, with you, if you're barrel aging beers, it depends on what kind of whisky you've had in it before. Whereas I've always found that the American bourbon ones tend to be a little bit more sweet and brown sugary, to be honest. So I'm expecting this one, the kind of barrel aged aromas and flavours will be quite sweet, and you get that straight away with this beer. I mean, first thing I'm noticing, you can pick out those lovely big oaky notes straight away, but there's quite a bit of vanilla coming out of this one, and it's almost a little bit like a kind of sugar caney quality that comes out of this beer. The brown sugars that come out of this are very, very nice, I have to say. That really does smell lovely. I have to, you know, say big thumbs up to Buxton Brewery for this one on the aroma side of things. They've done an awesome job with this beer. That smells really lovely. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of smoky, meaty quality to it, to be honest with you as well. That's kind of interesting. That's not what I would have expected. You can just smell that a little bit kind of underneath this one. It's a little bit meatier, peatier, something like that, just almost a little bit kind of smoky or something. But yeah, the woody notes that come out of this are lovely. It's almost a little bit like beechwood. It reminds me, there is just something about this beer that really reminds me of the the Schlenker La Rauch beers from Bamberg. You've got Spezial as well, of course, but it really reminds me of some of these German Franconian Rauch beers. It comes across really, really nicely, this beer. And of course you can get that from some of these beers that are like double mashed and stuff like that. Sometimes the brown sugars are so caramelised and so kind of treacly and molassesy, as you're getting in here, that it does give you an almost kind of smoky kind of quality, and that's really interesting. A little bit of a chocolatey note in this one as well, but really it's the brown sugars that dominate in this one. It really is more of a kind of treacly molasses sort of thing. Lovely woody infusion in there. It almost smells a little bit like sugar cane or something like that. Yeah, it almost smells just a little bit more like kind of sugar cane and stuff. It has a little bit of an almost rummy quality to it with the brown sugars too. It's really interesting. I mean, that's what it's all about with this beer, is the way the woodiness and the brown sugars kind of interact. On the hoppy side of things, you're not getting too much out of it in this beer. There's maybe a little touch of earthiness, a little bit of grassiness, but I mean, when it's been bourbon barrel aged, it didn't say how long for, right enough, but even if you age it for about 6 months, which I think is kind of the standard, you're going to, a lot of the hoppy qualities are going to, or the hoppy properties, if you like, are going to drop out of the beer a little bit, so you won't get too much in the way of hoppy aroma out of the beer. But in fairness, you do get a good little bit of fruit. There is a little bit of a raisiny sharpness to this one, and maybe a little bit of a figgy kind of blackcurranty blackberry juiciness there in the aroma too. But of course, the big dominating feature of, or dominant feature I should say, in this beer really is the way that the brown sugars kind of come out of this one, and the woody sort of undertones that the beer has. But overall, this is a really, really nice smelling beer, this one. Take a bit of time and just enjoy it for yourself before you get stuck into it. 12%, this one is a little bit of a monster. So yeah, let's just have a taste of this one and see how we get on then. So this one is the single barrel, the single barrel Rain Shadow, my apologies, a 12% Imperial Stout, bourbon barrel aged from Buxton Brewery in Buxton, Derbyshire in England. This one came through the Små Partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden in September 2019. So let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah, that's pretty good actually. First thing you're going to notice about this one, compared to what you think the aroma is going to be, I really expected this one to be very big and boozy, which it is, but it's actually a lot more roasty and toasty than you would expect from the aroma. I thought this one was going to be really all about the treacle, the molasses and the woody notes, and I mean, I'm not saying that they aren't present in there, because they bloody well are, to be honest, but the roasty base that this beer has is a lot more kind of prominent than you would think. But that's a beautiful, beautiful beer. Gets a thumbs up from me, this one. Well done to Buxton Brewery for pulling this one off. They've done an awesome, awesome job with this beer. So where to begin with this one then? First off, you are going to notice that this one has a massive, just big, massive, oily mouthfeel to it. You can feel some of those roasty, bitter qualities just blanketing the middle of your tongue. And that's kind of interesting actually, I really like that, and they come out a little bit more the further into the aftertaste that you go. Yeah, that really is very, very nice. Where to start other than that, but like I say, roasty black malt base there, and I do think specifically it's black malt in there because it is quite roasty and toasty. But on top of that, you do start to get a bit of a kind of chocolatey quality to this one. And you can feel that it's quite an infused flavour, this one. I suspect that the original version of this beer would be really very, very thick. And I mean, in fairness, I would describe this one as being quite thick for a bourbon barrel-aged beer. And I've always, in fairness, I'm quite, it's, the other thing to bear in mind is that when I drink a lot of the Scandinavian Imperial Stouts, which I would say are some of the thickest around, I found those quite thick in comparison to the American ones when I was over in Chicago and things recently. They really are quite, this one really is pretty damn thick, I have to say. It's probably the thickest barrel-aged Imperial Stout that I can come across, at least that comes to mind. But yeah, lovely high cocoa chocolate note in the middle of your palate with this beer. The further you go into the aftertaste, you can really feel the sort of oaky, woody flavours pushing their way out of this one. If you move towards the front of the palate, you will get a little bit of vanilla out of this beer. It's not quite as prominent as you might think from the aroma. There was quite a lot of brown sugar and vanilla kind of coming out of the aroma, but not as much in the flavour as you would think. But yeah, the brown sugars are really interesting in this one because it definitely has that sort of bourbon quality to it, but it actually really has a little bit more of a, it's almost got a little bit of a sugar-caney, rummy type quality to it, but it feels a little bit brighter than you're going to get from some rums. I mean, maybe it's a little bit like, it's almost a little bit like, how would you describe that? It's almost got a little bit of a kind of toffee-ish quality to it. It reminds me a little bit of the Thornton's toffee that my dad always used to eat. It has that kind of quality to it, which is really interesting. And it's quite a bright brown sugar that's in there too. I mean, in the aroma, it really comes across as being a very highly caramelised, sort of treacle, molassesy sort of thing, but the toffee kind of brown sugary notes in this one, it's almost like fudge as well, like Scottish fudge. It really has that kind of quality to it, this beer. So it really is interesting how all that goes together. The flavours in this one really come out in quite a different way from what you're expecting from the aroma, to be honest with you. And I like beers that do this, that can be a little bit different from what you expect, because they are going to test your palate a little bit. I don't think this beer really has any sort of kind of leathery elements. You can sometimes get that out of Imperial Stouts. I would say that the further you go into the aftertaste, there is almost a little bit of a kind of, if you pay attention to the middle of your palate and just moving out towards the sides, you do get a little bit of a kind of, how would you say, you do get a little touch of a almost tobacco-y type quality to this beer. It's kind of interesting that the flavour that I'm getting out of in the middle of the palate there, that kind of infused flavour, it does remind me of the smell of, like, the tobacco. A couple of my friends always used to roll cigarettes and things like that, and pardon me, the flavour that you get out of this beer and the aftertaste really, really reminds me of that. This is a fascinating beer, to be honest with you. The flavours just come out in such unusual ways that it really just makes you think a little bit. I'm not really getting any nutty qualities to this one. It really is a smooth kind of woody quality that blends in with the kind of black malty qualities that this beer has too. The middle of your palate, of course, with this one is where everything's happening, but it's an awesome beer, this. Make no mistake, they've done an awesome job of this, so big thumbs up to Buxton Brewery for this one. So, on the hoppy side of things then, this is one of the parts where it's quite consistent with the aroma. I mean, in the back corners of the palate you get a little bit of earthiness there, which is to be expected. I would expect that they're using, like Kent Goldings or Challenger or Bramling's Cross or something like that in this beer. Just from the way the earthiness is. It's not quite ashy enough, I think, to be like Fugels or something like that, but there is definitely a little bit of earthiness there in the back corners of the palate. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that just smooths out a little bit. You get a nice little touch of floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue it's a little bit lighter and more grassy and things like that as well. Behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And there's some interesting things going on there as well. So in the beginning, when you take this beer in, you'll notice there is a little bit of a sharp kind of raisiny, kind of plummy quality to the beer. And well, raisins would give you the sharpness, plums would give you a bit more of the juiciness. But the further you go into the aftertaste with this, you start to get, you know, a little bit of... some of the raisins do kind of linger there, I would say. But you start to get that more figgy, blackcurranty, blackberry type thing, and that's what makes me think there's Bramling's Cross in that. Bramling's Cross can give you some of these lovely notes, and it's... I mean, the other one would be Williamette, but I don't think Williamette is quite as earthy as you're getting out of this one. So fruity wise, it's quite nice, and some of that sharpness really does linger into the aftertaste. The things that do linger into the aftertaste, in my opinion, pardon me, would be the earthiness, some of the roasty black malts, some of the brown sugars really sit there as well, and then the slightly sharp kind of juicy fruitiness too. It's a really, really interesting beer, this one. I'd love to try the original. But you know, this is the one that I saw, this is the one we had through Systembolaget, and I thought, well, you know, why not? I really want to have a go at this one. But it's a beautiful beer, and if you get the chance to try it, have a go at it. I don't know how much I would have paid for this one, maybe about 50 crowns, something like that. So that's what, or maybe 60 crowns. So it's about £5 this beer. Whereas if you bought this in the UK, I'm pretty sure it would cost you more than that. I'm sure they would be charging about £8-9 for this one, especially considering that it's a barrel aged one and things like that. So I got a very good deal on this beer, I have to say. So thank you, Systembolaget. Social alcoholism, it works. But yeah, a really interesting beer, this one, and I'm glad that I was able to review it for you here. In terms of the mouthfeel, definitely a full-bodied beer. Like I said, though, when it comes to barrel aging, that always thins the mouthfeel down a bit, but this is definitely one of the thickest barrel aged beers that I've come across. So, yeah, full-bodied, carbonation really is quite smooth. It definitely leans towards that oily side of the spectrum. Good bit of bitterness in this. I think we're talking about 70 IBUs in this one, maybe even a bit more than that. And that's coming both from the hops and from the malt base. It could even be about 80, 70 or 80 IBUs in this one. It really has to be. Good bit of bitterness there, but the malt base does have a good degree of sweetness to it as well, good degree of smoothness, some nice sharp fruity notes in the beginning, and a bit of a lighter kind of grassy note in the front too. It does have a bit of freshness to it almost on the front of the palate as well. But like I said, an awesome beer, and it's been really cool to review this one for you. It's nice to do a dedicated review to Buxton every so often, because I do feel that I review so many collaborations involving them, but I don't get the time to focus on one of their beers. Hopefully I can do the Axe to the Power X sometime soon, and I'd love to have a go at Kingslayer as well. They've got a few Imperial Stouts as well that have been aged in like Speyside casks and things like that, and Isla casks. I'd love to have a go at those, but I don't come across those so often. But I'll keep an eye on what's coming out with Buxton through Systembolaget and things. But yeah, an awesome beer this, and check it out if you get the chance. So this is one of the really good ones from Systembolaget in September. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Buxton Brewery as well. I'm sure I'll return to these guys in the near future, but it's been awesome to review this, and hopefully I can review the original Rain Shadow for you at some point soon. But this one was the single barrel Rain Shadow, aged in bourbon barrels, I'm guessing for about 6 months or so, at 12.2%, an Imperial Stout from Buxton Brewery in Derbyshire, England. Until the next time, Slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers.